Welcome everybody to our RGC TAC meeting. And we're going to start with our roll call here. And, I don't like to start at the top. I like to start somewhere in the middle. So since the Utah basketball teams really pounded all the Kansas basketball teams over the last week, we're going to start with the K's in Kaysville. So is there anyone here from Kaysville?
Jason Christensen from Kaysville, City Manager.
All right, welcome, Jason. I know Layton's not here. How about Mary at Slaterville?
Actually, time out. Layton is here.
Oh, okay. You are here.
Yeah, Joy Petro, Layton Mayor.
Okay, well, thank you, Joy. Guess your planners aren't here, but thank you for coming, Mayor. Mary at Slaterville? Maida. North Ogden. North Salt Lake.
Allie Avery.
Ogden have Barton Brierly.
Brandon Ripken's here.
Joe Simpson.
And Perry. Plain City. Pleasant View.
Dana Schuler with Jones and Associates.
Welcome. Riverdale. Roy. South Ogden.
Yeah, Aleka Murphy, South Ogden City Planner.
Welcome. South Weber.
Lance Evans, planner.
Hello, Lance. Sunset. Syracuse. Uinta. Washington Terrace.
Recording in progress.
Weber County. West Bountiful. West Haven.
Stephen Nelson here for West Haven.
Welcome. West Point. Willard. Woods Cross.
Curtis Poole with Woods Cross.
Welcome, Curtis. UDOT. UTA.
Sean Cosabetta here with UTA Service Planner.
Olivia Bonds with UTA Long Range Strategic Planning.
Laura
Great.
McClellan with UTA Planning.
Anyone from FHWA? Jory, you want to introduce WFRC?
Yeah, Dory Johnner, Julie Bjornstad, Hugh Van Wagenen, Shay Musqueda, Jordan Chandler, Ted Knowlton, Meg Padgen, and Tim Watkins, Matt Ryan, Sarah Lawless.
All right. Bountiful.
Amber Corbridge, Senior Planner.
All right. Welcome, Amber. Box Elder County. Bragg. Brigham City.
This is Paul Larson.
Welcome, Paul. Centerville.
Mike Agate, Centerville City.
Thanks for coming. Clinton.
Yep, Peter Matson with Clinton.
Davis County. Farmington.
Dave Peterson, Farmington.
Welcome, Dave. Far West.
Mayor Pippin, Far West.
Welcome, Mayor. Fruit Heights. Harrisville. Hill Air Force Base. And last but not least, Hooper. All right. Welcome, everybody. Glad you could join us. So we're going to start with the approval of the December 11th, 2024 summaries. Going to have a motion to approve or amend the minutes.
And move that we approve the minutes. This is Dave from Farmington.
Is there a second?
This is Joy. I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so this is how we vote online. All those in favor stay silent. All those opposed, speak up. All right, so the minutes are approved. Thank you. And now we have the great opportunity to hear from Bountiful. Amber Corbridge is going to tell us about the great things that are happening in Bountiful. So Amber, take it away.
All right, let me get my PowerPoint up. Hopefully this works. Okay. I just want to make sure my screen is sharing something.
Yep, it's working.
Okay, it says Bountiful City.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so we'll just dive right in. So about us, we're at 45,762. That's from 2020 census. We've got 15,945 housing units. Also, we're working on updating our general plan. I'll touch on that. And we're hoping to have that adopted this year. And finally, I'll cover our implementation of our Bountiful Trails Master Plan. It's my favorite part. So I want to talk a lot about that. So going into our general plan, we have a 2009 general plan, which is pretty out of date. It's not very helpful when someone wants to come in and amend the zoning map or even the land use code. So we needed to update our plan. So we held various public meetings to get input. And right now we're in the drafted stage of review where we are implementing, we're going to have sections of the plan that cover different areas of the city called place types. So for example, we've got 3 on the screen. We've got a foothill residential. There's also like a residential zone, or not zone, but place type. And then we cover transit ready and downtown, and there's others as well. These are just examples of what those pages may look like. Again, it's just a draft right now. So it gives you an idea of what we would potentially allow in areas of the city. I don't have the future land use map yet. That's also in the drafted stage, but that will identify where these areas would be in our city. Moving on to trails. So we have a trails committee, which was formally created in 2016. They wanted to develop a master plan for the trails to meet the needs of different users, to disperse our trail use and improve our access. So many of you may know about our Mueller Park Trail. It's the most common one in our area. And so we were getting a lot of traffic on that trail, conflict. Mountain bikers coming down, hikers going up, things like that. So there was a need to address this. So we developed a master plan in 2019 with the help of Blue Line Design Consultants. So in 2020, we created an implementation plan, which used that master plan as a guide. And then after that, we did contract with IMBA, International Mountain Biking Association, to create our conceptual master plan trail map. And they also flagged many of the trail corridors. There's the map there. So just to go over it real quick, you'll see that there are the dashed trail routes. Those are proposed. We show bridges in the orange rectangles. And then we have our solid trails that are built. Basically, we have some in progress on there that we'll cover later, but it's pretty exciting to see this come together. In 2021, we submitted our first NEPA to the Forest Service. That included, let me get my laser. That included areas like Mueller Park. So to get approval to move forward with these trails in this area, also Hidden Lakes down here, to get that trail sunset put in, Stone Ridge and Temple Ridge area up here. A lot of this is owned by the Forest Service, so we needed their approval. In 2022, we were awarded a $500,000 trail grant from UORG. And then we had an approved bond of $8 million for construction of a park in our city and for the improvement of our trails. In 2023, we started using, this is IMBA's plan, so we started using this, and to date, we have built 34 miles of various trail types that you can see here. Again, so this is Hidden Lakes area here for reference. North Canyon is this area here. Mahogany Ridge is being built right now. They had to pause for winter, but it's going to be completed this year. It's a multi-user trail, bi-directional. You can access it through North Canyon, and you can either go up it or down it, but it does connect on over to Rudy's Flat and our new BST. Also, you can get over to Mueller Park. This is Mueller Park area here. So the new trails in this area are, we have this trail here, Peregrine and Maple Syrup. It's bi-directional, but a lot of people will ride it counterclockwise. It's a great loop on a mountain bike, but it is also hiking friendly. So whether you're on foot or hoof or a bike, this is accessible to all those users. The new downhill trail, 304, 305, is mountain biking only. So you can access that from Elephant Rock, which is about right here. So that opened up just before the winter storm hit at the end of last year. And we heard really great reviews about this trail. We had, I think, around like 500 riders on Strava, like within like 2 to 3 weeks of it being open, basically. So it got a lot of attention. Everyone was posting about it. And so that's pretty exciting. We're bringing a lot of surrounding community trail users to this area now. And then all of this area, this is Temple Ridge area. All of these trails were built within the last 2 years. We've got some of these are downhill only mountain bike trails. Twist downhill and Shout downhill is like an intermediate downhill mountain biking trail. And then Shoot to Thrill is also downhill. So it's pretty exciting. We've spread a lot of our users out. We've heard good things about the users of Mueller Park. They're saying that there's less traffic. It's great to have a route for mountain bikers to come down so that they're not experiencing a lot of congestion in Mueller Park. So yeah, things are moving along. We're still working with the Forest Service to get more approvals. For example, we want to connect trails from Mueller Park to Holbrook Canyon. That's these trails in here. We need to connect basically this area to this area. So we need to get approval of some of these, like 409 is one that we're requesting approval from the Forest Service. We have private property owners where these trails are, so that's a challenge for us to get approval to go through there. So yeah, we're working on improving some of our hiking trails because a lot of the hikers still want to be able to go up on the mountain and not be overwhelmed by all the mountain bikers that are coming here. So we are working to improve some of our existing trails and designating them as hiking only or equestrian. So yeah, these are some pictures of some of these trail areas. This is the Hidden Lakes trails, which connect to North Canyon. They provide really beautiful views of the valley. This is the Temple Ridge area. This is our multi-use bidirectional, it's called Bellevue. So it's a really fun trail. And this is our Bountiful Shoreline Trail here. These are some pictures of our trails that we've built in Mueller Park, including this is one of the 4 bridges we've built. So it's been really good to see all of this come together within the last 2 years. Here's some more photos because Mueller Park has a lot of new stuff. So some technical sections. This is Peregrine here. And then this is the bottom of that new downhill trail for mountain bikes next to the creek. So it's really pretty area. And then here are the new trails in North Canyon. This one's not open yet. This is that one that's under construction, but should be opening up this year. So we're really excited about this one because once you get to the top, you have a really beautiful view of Bountiful and all of the canyons and peaks. So I wanted to end with, let's see, I don't know how much time I have. I think I'm right at my 10-minute mark, but
Yeah.
Do I have 3 extra minutes?
Yeah, you can go 3.
Okay. I don't know if this is gonna work. I have a link to a video that we put together. A Bountiful Trails Advisory Committee put this together, and it gives you a summary basically of our goals and trails. So let's see if this works. It's gonna open up. I don't know if I need to reshare. Hold on. Is that sharing or still not? I'm gonna have to reshare, I think.
Something started to pop up, but
Oh, did it? It's the Instagram page that we have for our Bountiful Trails. There. Is it showing now?
It's coming. There it is.
Okay. I don't know if you'll be able to hear it. Can you guys hear that okay?
What we have is 2 trails.
not coming very clear to me.
It's not clear.
Not to me, but maybe I'm looking around to see if others.
Is anyone
No, the
else able
sound's
to see?
cutting, the sound cuts out, but the
Oh.
video was playing up until a second ago on my.
Okay. Well, maybe
Amber-
it's best that
We
you
can,
watch this on your-
Amber, we can share that, or Jordan, I
Okay.
guess that's what you were gonna say, I think.
Yeah, that's just what I was gonna say. If you want to send me the link, I'm happy to include it in
Yeah.
the follow-up email.
Yeah, I will send it to, who do I send it to? Sorry.
You can send it to myself, Jordan Chandler.
I don't know if I have your email, but
I'll chat it to you.
sounds good. Okay, that's all I had for Bountiful City. Thank you so much for listening in and watching. It's been really exciting. So,
Hey,
yeah.
thank you, Amber. Appreciate it. I love doing these because I always learn something new, what different communities are doing. So That was great. And so Amber kind of pinch hit because Layton ended up not making it. So we'll make Layton do it next month. So Mary, you can tell your planners that they're on the hook for April. So let's go to Tim. Wasatch Choice Vision next steps with your community.
Thank you, Bart. I'll just have this up here in just a moment. All right. So we're at a very interesting and exciting point in the update process of the Wasatch Choice Vision. And so just as a little reminder, here's one of the workshops, albeit in a different county and region than our focus today. It still shows the excitement and the power of collaboration that occurs at the fall workshops, where we gather community feedback and explore future concepts, land use, transportation, transit, and trails, and active transportation for the future. So we're close to finalizing a draft of the 2025 Wasatch Choice Vision land use map based on these comments in the fall of 2024, and also the comments that we're receiving from you, city planners. And basically over the course of the last month, we've been inviting you to provide feedback. If you haven't provided feedback yet in the comment app, mapping app, good news, we can give you until Friday to provide any clarifications or refinements to our attempt to draft the map based on the comments. Today, we'd like to talk about finalizing the comments this week, and then how you as planners can facilitate a city leadership review in the coming weeks as we send out the draft vision map to all workshop invitees. And we'll send that out next week. So here's an example of one of the workshop maps, this one from Northern Davis County, where communities were invited to comment on land use and transportation. Today's focus, and at this point of the process, we're focused on the land use side of the comments, but rest assured that long-range transportation planning group is busy processing the feedback provided on the roads, the transit, the trails, and so forth. Land use is very important at this early point in the process, given that once the land use vision is finalized and we're able to update it, then it can be used to forecast preliminary households and jobs. And that's using the real estate market model. And then that information interacts with the travel demand model that long-range planning and our analytics group start to develop scenarios, and leads to the update of the Wasatch, the update of the Wasatch Choice Vision, land use and transportation, which then feeds into the long-range transportation plan update. So here's a few examples of workshop maps that we've been digitizing and taking our best attempt to interpret what these colored dots and markings mean for land use. As you can see, there's room for some interpretation. And that's where your role comes in as being very important as city planners. And this is just a screenshot of the app that our analytics team developed to support you in providing comments and helping us shape this vision so that it truly reflects your vision for the future as an important component across the region. And these dark hatch areas, or the black lines with black outlines, these are what you can draw in the app and then provide some annotations or some comments and select a land use type, or say remove this land use type from the map. In some cases, you see this question mark. We put a question down to say, hey, we're not quite sure if we got this right. What do you think? But any and all of this is open for planner comment. And Paul Larson, if I could just highlight what you and I looked at the other day. This is Brigham City, and you see on the left side of the mapping app, the 2023 or the current land use for the vision. And this shows a city center along the corridor of 1100 South. I've also been in touch with Robert Barnhill in Perry City, and we've been able to clarify a few questions for interpretation some of the educational centers. But you can also see over here on the west or the left side of this study area, Bountiful's getting close to finalizing a general plan update, and Paul guided the expansion, the reshaping of potential mixed use areas, and an upgrade or a change from neighborhood center yellow, and the comment associated with this dark hatch area suggested it should or could be a city center. So perhaps even more intense than a neighborhood center with different types of mix of uses there. So this speaks to the importance of receiving comments from city planners. We know you're very busy, and we really appreciate you taking the time to, I'm sorry, I just lost control of my screen, but let's get it back to where we're at in the process. So this first arrow, lower arrow points to your staff or planning staff comments. And we're just kind of reaching the tail end of that. We're really starting to gather those comments, review those together, and preparing for an email or a letter to all of the workshop invitees, not just those who attended, but any who would have been invited. And that tends to be the Planning Commission, Council, department heads, and key staff. And that's something that we promised we would do at the workshops, so that there's transparency and stronger regional collaboration and buy-in to the vision. So we recognize that therein lies both an opportunity and the challenge of coordinating that feedback, which I'll touch on in the next slide. I'll just point out the next steps of the process. Follow the update to, or the feedback from planners, then collectively from the city leadership, I'll say. And then that allows us to arrive at a land use vision update, finalize that in the spring of 2025. And then our long range planning and analytics group will use that updated future land use map with the jobs and the household forecast as they look at transportation scenarios, test ideas, leading up to the fall workshop in 2025 to review a preferred transportation scenario. So just a little bit of a summary and then set up some discussion that we'd love to hear from you. So we really appreciate it if you haven't had the opportunity to comment in the mapping app to do so by this Friday, the 21st. Unofficially, you would have over the weekend. We'll on Monday we'll close the app and bring it all together in the second bullet point, which is to finalize the draft vision map. And then we hope as early as into mid next week, we could send that out to communities and workshop invitees. And so the challenge and the opportunity is to provide a unified response. We call it the city leadership review. It's leadership and staff. And that would be in the time frame of late this month to early April. And you could provide unified response by way of written comments or meeting comments or minutes. So this could be an opportunity for city planning to support in facilitating that, whatever type of meeting format you think might work best. And we'd love to offer our support if that's needed or desired. Wasatch Front Regional Council staff happy to support. So perhaps some questions to ask of you in this body is any suggestions for how the draft land use vision is sent out, or what the mapping format might be, and then how you might engage with community leaders, and then what planning opportunities do you think could be accomplished through this opportunity? So with that, I'll conclude and invite any comments or questions.
Tim, there's a question in the chat. You might want to grab Mayor Fippen.
Sure.
Well, it looks like Sarah might have.
Oh, yes, I will post I'll post the mapping app. And I meant to do that a little sooner. So let me just do that right now.
Is it the one that Sarah just posted, Tim?
Yeah.
Or...
It might be. I'm sorry, I wasn't watching the chat.
Yep.
I will just show, when you click on the link, this is what it looks like. There is a link on the landing page that takes you to some instructions for how to navigate through the mapping app and draw little polygon comments, understanding what the land use choices are.
Tim, can I add a thought or two on this?
Please do.
The task at hand is not to take your general plan, not necessarily to take your general plan or even the general plan that you might be working on, and then move that directly into the Wasatch Choice land use. You can do that, but the task is more thinking about a longer time frame, even further out to the year 2055, not necessarily ideas that you have landed on as a community, but ideas that you are interested in exploring and get them on the vision. The whole idea of a vision is, look, we might be willing to explore this or that. It's kind of in the mix. And, if transportation was coordinated with that land use idea, it might increase our willingness to do it. And so we want to get our ideas out on the collaborative table, the vision, and then we will think about how to implement them into our community over time. So it's a different exercise than the general plan, time frame, and the formality of it. However, I hope that makes sense. However, the idea with doing this in the way that we're talking about in this cycle, which is a little bit of a different focus for us, is we want to make sure there's a comfort level across your leadership in your communities so that when everybody talks about the Wasatch Choice vision, they can very squarely and confidently say, look, this is a grassroots product, and it represents what we're all working towards as we coordinate one community to the other, land use with regional transportation. I hope that wasn't just redundant. It was actually helpful. We'll see.
Well, that was great, Ted. Thank you. And I was focused a little more on the process and the steps and that reminder of the time frame of the vision. And I'll just maybe add to what you're saying, Ted, that I've had good conversations with many of you, and please do feel free to reach out and schedule time with me. There's my contact info. But adding on to what Ted said, some of you are going to start a general plan update in the coming weeks or months. Some of you will conclude a general plan, or some of you might be midstream, or some of you have a stable general plan that's working well. And so you're not bound to where your general plan is. It's, I think, Ted's point. And that there are other opportunities when, to amend the vision. It's not just this every 4 years. We can look at land use vision amendment at least every couple of years, if not more frequent.
I think that living aspect of the vision is important because, your communities exploring ideas of how you deal with growth. And as you figure out where you want to go, you firm up an idea or you decide, we put that on the vision, but on second thought, that's not where we want to go. Then we just update the vision to reflect the latest conversation that's happening in each community.
So does anyone have thoughts about how you might want to engage your community leaders and other management level of your departments to provide a unified response and review the map? One possibility that came to my mind is that you could set up a combined work meeting, planning commission council, and bring different city department heads and managers together. That might be a good format to cut down on the number of emails and questions that might be funneled to you.
Now, when are these comments due again with the joint, not this deadline on Friday? This is Dave from Farmington, but the city leadership, April 4th. Because we have a retreat, city council retreat on March 29th. So,
Yeah, we've got our eye on April 4th. It could end up being a grace period after that, but I think initially we would encourage a response by April 4th so that we're sure that we have enough time to bring it to review committees and the Wasatch Front Regional Council for kind of formalizing the amendment.
okay.
All right. Thanks, Tim.
Thanks,
Appreciate
everyone.
that.
You bet.
Okay, let's move on. Jory, you're going to talk about your engagement in developing the RTP.
Yeah, let me share screen. All right, does that work? Hopefully. You can see that, Barton?
Looking good.
All right. George on our long range planning group here at WFRC. Short presentation today. Mostly want to get from you at the end of this how you, as the Regional Growth Committee Technical Advisory Committee, right? So you're the planners that provide advice or recommendations to our Regional Growth Committee, made up of elected officials, UDOT, UTA, leadership, etc. So how you want to be involved in our RTP process for this year. So let me run through this. Let me remind you first what that process is. So 4-year process that the Wasatch Choice Vision and Regional Transportation Plan work on to connect communities today with what they want to look like in the future, as Tim, kind of alluded to with all the land use. On the RTP side, we're the transportation component of that. The first year there, you can see the exploratory concepts. That is pretty much what we did this last year in 2024 and the workshops this last fall. We took your ideas from that. So where we want to move forward is creating a preferred scenario of transportation projects this year. And a preferred scenario is pretty much the projects that are needed between now and our horizon year. So our current regional transportation plan ends at 2050. The new one that we're working on will go from 2027 to 2055. So think out this next year, we want to find out what projects best fit the land use that you're going to work on with Tim and that group. And then in 2026, we'll identify when those projects are needed based on phase. So not only just needed, but when expected revenues are needed or available. And so we'll have a needed phase and by decade, and then a fiscally constrained phase by decade. And then in 2027, we'll be looking to adopt the plan by the regional council. So this is a little bit more detailed version of the process. As you can see at the very top there, concepts for consideration is that step 1. And then we work through our process, and you can see some screening between preliminary screening, technical screening, and then eventually into phasing and funding availability, which would be 2026. So this is just a little bit more detailed version. And like I mentioned on that first slide, really want to focus in on this next year. So we will be looking at really screening projects right now, existing regional transportation plan, projects we received from you from our workshops, from our key stakeholders. So these are the universities and large landholders across the region. We had a public comment period. We took comments of projects that the general public wanted us to explore. And we've also internally looked at some strategies along with, we want to make sure we capture projects from existing studies through our screening process. So that's step 1 right there, that preliminary screening. And that ultimately decides, does a project move forward or not? Is it feasible? Does it make some sense for further consideration and technical evaluation? Once projects get through the technical evaluation, it'll either the project will land in the regional transportation plan as that preferred scenario, or we have that new category of exploring concepts. And those projects are projects that maybe they're a good idea, but they haven't been studied or vetted enough. There may not have everybody's buy-in on those, or they may need some additional land use adjustments to really make the project function and connect better. So that's kind of the process we're looking at this year, is just getting down to, does a project move forward? Does it go into our regional transportation plan, or does it go to our exploratory concepts? So any questions on the process? All right, I don't see any. So the question for all of you, and these are things that I want you to take into consideration, is where should you all be? How should we utilize this committee, the technical advisory committee, planners mostly, within our process? And so think about you as a whole, and I've put in the dates of our upcoming meetings for this year, but also know that, you know, there'll be coordination with individual communities. There'll be coordination with UDOT and UTA. We'll be doing some of this internally at WFRC, and then some of this we'll be looking at all of it. And so what I did was, is I took a crack at the 4 remaining meetings for this upcoming technical advisory committee, and I put in some potential items that we may want to, we could review with you all if you thought it made some sense. And so open to ideas. So, you know, right off the bat, we took your input last fall on the preliminary screening, I think in December, actually, the preliminary screening and the technical evaluation criteria. So we've taken that input, we've refined that, and we are reviewing projects right now through our preliminary screening. So question might be, does this group feel like you want to review all of the projects that have been ran through the preliminary screening? Or does it make sense to maybe in July review, you know, a system of projects that have been through preliminary screening and technical screening, and, you know, as a whole, you know, for the northern part of Utah or our WFRC region, and we do more individual coordination with you on specific projects as we're going through the projects. So think about that a little bit. Also, we'll have an updated travel demand model, population and employment projections this summer, and as Tim mentioned, you know, a Wasatch Choice vision. So looking mostly for that, keep in mind that we will be taking out a preferred scenario, a list of transportation projects to the fall workshops. So those are made up of your mayors, county commissioners, city council members, planning commissioners, and other staff within your city. So we'll be taking that out in October, November as usual. And just trying to, like I said, get your guys' the idea of like, how much do you want to be involved in our process? How much detail do you want? Do you want to be kept up to speed, but on a high level? Do you want to be in the weeds and in detail? And then also you can see there in the middle, we will be looking at phasing criteria. So the evaluation criteria and the weighting that we'll be evaluating projects against each other, that we'll be doing in 2026. We'll be working on that this next summer and fall. And so that definitely will be something we want to bring to you and get your input on. So with that, hopefully not overly confusing, but, you know, at a high level, we normally run things by this group, but I just wanted to do a little bit of touch base, Barton and everybody else, of, you know, your thoughts and input on how involved and input, also with the consideration that we will be doing individual reach out to everybody. So, you know, as we work on review comments. So anybody? Thoughts?
Yeah, just one question. This is Dave again. So the updated population employment projections, how early will we get a chance to look at that to make sure they meet what I'm kind of are consistent with what we have for our individual cities?
Right. And
or are you getting the numbers from us?
No, we are. So we get population employment forecast from the Gardner Policy Institute. So KEMC Gardner Policy Institute. We're currently waiting to get those on a county-wide level. And then Bert Granberg, Josh Reynolds, and a few others in our analytics group work on population distribution, and we have a current population employment forecasting, and we can share that. Once I get done with this presentation, Dave, I can share that with you just as a reminder. But we want to work with the communities that have your eyes on those, and so not only on a citywide level, but within a traffic analysis zone, right? So the small little, roughly a square mile zone. And so we want your input, and I think the game plan is that we would be, as soon as we get the information from the Gardner Policy Institute, we would be pulling together some draft numbers and then getting those out to you all for review, which I expect later this spring and into the summer. So that would be then would roll into our travel demand model, right? So the process of that is we get new population employment forecast. They'll be based on Wasatch Choice Vision, your input. We'll run them through our real estate market models, and then those models will directly reflect and update our travel demand model, which shows ridership for transit, volumes for roadways, etc. And so currently we'll be reviewing projects with the 9.1 version of the model and the current population employment, but we already have it on our radar, the long range planning group, that, you know, once population employment centers and the model change, then we'll want to do a review to make sure we didn't miss anything. So did that answer your question?
Yeah, and that's good because we internally we track things by TAZ.
Okay, good.
So that's good. Okay.
Any other
Yeah,
thoughts?
I think it'd be useful to kind of highlight things that affect, you know, multiple communities. You know, if it's a traffic signal in downtown Hooper, probably doesn't have to rise to this committee, but if it's a highway that connects Hooper and 12 other communities, then that's something we definitely want to think about. Think about things that are new, that or maybe have been just kind of conceptual and are moving toward the more real phase. I think that would be very helpful. I agree talking about the population employment projections are, because if it's all depending on one community growing and that community's adamant against growing, then that's going to affect the whole model.
Perfect. No, I like that idea, the new conceptual multi-community. So, no, that's good feedback. Well, as if there's nothing else, know that you'll hear from Hugh and Che and Lauren and Samantha on any questions we have on the project, the feedback you gave us at the workshops. And we'll start screening projects, and there'll be at least dialogue on a local. We utilize you all as the planners as our kind of main conduit for the community. But if there's ever times where you think, you know what, this needs to get raised to our city manager, or we need to bring in others, we're happy to sit down around the table. And as we work on other projects, you know, like a lot of projects sometimes come from local communities on a UDOT facility or a transit facility with UTA, we'll make sure we bring the right players to the table as well to have some of the conversations as we work through this. And it's never just one and done. There'll be multiple iterations and plenty of time to provide feedback.
Okay. Any other comments for Jory? All right. Thank you. Now we're going to pass it over to Che to talk about advanced air mobility.
All right. So let me get my presentation going here. All right. So as requested, I'm here to give a little informational session on advanced air mobility, kind of the timeline, what it is, and what is going on in Utah. And then we'll have a little bit of time for some questions and answers, question and answer afterwards. But if you have something that you'd like to ask as I'm going through, please feel free to do so. And I'll answer that to the best of my ability. So for those who don't know what advanced air mobility is, it's a different mode of transportation that is kind of new and up and coming. Most of these aircraft are either powered by electricity or hydrogen powered. They're generally quieter than traditional aircraft and helicopters, and there's two main categories for advanced air mobility vehicles. One of them is called an eVTOL, which stands for Electric Vertical Takeoff and Landing. So that kind of operates like a traditional helicopter does. And then another category are considered sort of a regional air mobility vehicle. And they can be larger, but at the moment they're still relatively small. But it's a fixed wing aircraft, and they're known as CTOLs, and conventional takeoff and landing. So they kind of land and take off just as a normal airplane would. So there's a couple different characteristics that eVTOLs and CTOLs have that I want to go over. And the main things are with the eVTOLs is that they can take off and land vertically, which makes it a lot easier to have vertiports in different areas. You don't need all that runway space. Well, the CTOLs do need runway space. However, it is not as much as a traditional aircraft would. Right now, most of the eVTOLs and CTOLs have a capacity of around 4 passengers. Some of them are up to 6, but that also includes 1 pilot. They're currently the ones that are larger are piloted by a person, while smaller drones that are doing package delivery are autonomous, or they're piloted by somebody on the ground using a controller of some sort. The larger aircraft and the smaller ones have a little bit less range than the larger ones, obviously, but those larger ones have around 150 to 200 mile max range. However, Beta Technologies, one of their aircrafts has gone, it's like around 370 miles on one charge. So it's quite a large distance that they're able to cover off of that battery. Another note is that they have 0 operating missions, which is great. And their top speed is around 200 miles an hour. Some of the smaller drones can go faster, but if they're carrying cargo, that's not quite their purpose. So the short-term growth in the advanced air mobility market is kind of looking at a large growth as each year goes by. So in 2020, there was a few select aircraft companies that were either manufacturing parts or manufacturing different prototypes of eVTOLs and CTOLs and charging infrastructure. And now there's a lot more players in that field. And this is a good thing because we are getting a lot of these companies are coming into Utah to have their businesses here and to work in our state, and which is great for us for economic development. And it also allows for a bit more diversified products. And so we're seeing a lot of technology come out of different manufacturing procedures as technology is advancing. So for Utah, we have a lot of different applications for advanced air mobility. So there's cargo carry, cargo delivery, passengers, so personnel carrying, recreational use such as taking pictures or doing video. There's law enforcement and public safety, which would be anything from a call goes out, and instead of before the squad car or the emergency medical vehicle can get there, a drone would be sent out, and so that it can understand the situational awareness of the scene that the responders are arriving to. There's infrastructure inspection, which is a really big one for UDOT and UTA and other freight and rail companies that are inspecting their rail lines or inspecting bridges. It allows personnel to not have to travel that distance or get up on ladders or into losing the word. I can't remember the word for a crane, but the device that lifts them up so that they can manually inspect the bridge. So it makes that a bit easier. And then medical, it's a huge deal in that field because it allows for let's say a prescription to get shipped out to your home and get dropped off without having to go to the doctor. And perhaps you live in a rural area, so that can be really useful. Or it can allow for emergency medical service, as in a personnel drone, an electric drone with a pilot comes and picks you up. And instead of having a large helicopter bill, the bill is much less. And that service is much faster than having a vehicle, an ambulance come to your home or wherever you you would be at for that. And then it's also used in agriculture, such as spraying and inspecting crops as well. And we have a lot of different destinations in Utah. So the two main ones at the moment are going to be Salt Lake City International Airport and then our regional airports. However, is the vertiport system and eVTOL and CTOL systems are expanded, and there's more charging infrastructure around the state that can go out to manufacturing plants, resorts, downtown areas, what have you. There can be a lot of different destinations. So here's just kind of a little graphic I wanted to show on the idea of how it can work in an urban and suburban area. And that could be, there is a vertiport such as there's a manufacturing center that delivers products to a vertiport at Salt Lake International Airport or South Valley or Ogden Airport. And then from there, drones are gone out and they can deliver products, or a passenger goes from the suburban to the international airport or the regional airport or into downtown. And it's kind of similar with the rural areas as well. And there's some different applications here where you could say that the medical use cases become a little bit more prevalent of there's a hard to reach area or a long, it takes a while to get there by vehicle. And so therefore the drone, which flies as the crow flies, is a lot easier to pick up and administer those medical services. So there's a few different aspects that when we think about advanced air mobility, that we need to kind of keep in mind of what are we looking at. So there's ensuring that there's an efficient airfield operation, and a lot of that is on the regional airports and then Salt Lake International Airport to coordinate with the companies, the eVTOL companies, the CTOL companies, manufacturing companies, et cetera. The locations of the vertiports, so that's where cities having talks with 47G and having talks with UDOT Aeronautics and with us will come into play a lot. Addressing community concerns with advanced air mobility operations. So there's going to be which I'll hit on this towards the end of this presentation, but there is in the development, a toolkit for outreach and engagement being developed. And then integration with future and existing airspace environment. So what is going on in the airspace currently, and then how drones will fit into that airspace. And then financial funding in the business model. So where is the money coming from? And a lot of it will be private, but some of it will also be from the government as well. And the scalability of operations is another one. So how big can we go? How many drones can we have in the air? How many personnel carriers can be flying at one time? And then that kind of ties in also with the service offerings and connectivity. And with that, all of that kind of relies on requirements for electricity. And that's a big one because obviously these vehicles are going to be drawing from the power source and ensuring that we have the proper infrastructure to be able to do that. So that's where Beta Technologies comes in. So if everyone isn't aware, there was recently a memorandum of understanding signed between 47G, the state of Utah, and Beta Technologies. So what Beta Technologies does is they create you can see on the left-hand side of this image, there is a charging station. And so they create that electronic charging infrastructure. And then they also create the aircraft that you see in this photo as well. And that memorandum of understanding is basically saying, hey, we're going to work together, and Beta Technologies is going to help propel Utah into the future of advanced air mobility. And for those who don't know what 47G is, I'm going to go over that. So 47G is basically a conglomeration of different businesses and working with a couple of transportation partners and universities to work on the plan, which is called Project Delta, for Utah's advanced air mobility. So they do a lot of different work. They work with state and local government, and they work a lot with aerospace and defense, and then advanced air mobility and some academic institutions as well. The coalition that has been that 47G has been tasked to lead involves a few different key players. Hexcel, they are a manufacturing company who make a lot of different manufacturing parts for NASA, and then as well as different parts for aircraft that are in the advanced air mobility category. The GOPB, Utah Inland Port Authority, UDOT, Mortensen Construction, Salt Lake City, Utah State University, and Cache Valley Electric. And so this, and us as well. And so this group is looking at how the planning will go, and what kind of needs to happen as each step is taken. And here's just kind of a rundown of what you need when you think of advanced air mobility, of all the different parts that kind of have to go together. So you have to think about the aircraft system, the infrastructure, which is that electrification operation. So that can go from maintenance crews to pilots, to who is doing all the planning for the operations. Airspace, so working with the FAA, and then air traffic control procedures as well. And that is a little bit not quite up in the air right now, but it is being thought through and is being processed on how that is going to be handled. So that's being worked on by the FAA at the moment. And here's a big thing that I think that everybody wants to see, which is the Project Alta timeline. So right now we're in that middle, this phase here, phase 2, where we're looking at small cargo delivery. And there's a few different cases where we have this going on. There was an operation with Drone Up in Harriman Walmart is no longer using Drone Up. So that is no longer there. However, Intermountain Healthcare does use drones to deliver some prescriptions, and it's in the couple hundreds per day. So there's a lot of that already happening. And then as it goes forward and we progress in the timeline into phase 3, it will go into larger cargo delivery. And so that's looking at that first and last mile. And that will be kind of a larger package, which will be anywhere from that 25 to 50 pounds that can be carried. And that's, as technology advances, that's what's going to become available. And then going into phase 4, it'll go into looking at personnel carrying and passenger transport, as well as large cargo. So that would be taking a CTOL or an eVTOL that's a larger aircraft, and let's say removing the seats, and now you're able to carry 500 or 1,000 pounds of cargo and move that. And then as we go into phase 5 and heading towards the Winter Olympics, it would be the idea is that personnel carrier aircraft will be fully ready to be utilized and will be used to aid in transportation of the Winter Olympics. I'm going to go, excuse me, I'm going to go back to this slide in just a second, but I wanted to make everyone aware of a Senate bill that has been released, and it is basically what this one is working on is UDOT Aeronautics is trying to get together a community outreach and education toolkit and campaign so that there can be more awareness, so that communities can understand what's happening, and then that there's a toolkit for city planners and staff to help understand all the different variables that come into this, such as airspace, airspace control, vertiport planning, and who to contact, and kind of hopefully answer a lot of questions that are up in the air. So I'm going to go back to this slide and then open it up for questions. If knew that was a lot of information, so please ask away. Would gladly answer, and if not, if I don't know the answer right now, I will get back to you with the proper answer. And if there's nothing, that's okay. Please feel free to reach out to me at any time. Yeah, would love to hear your questions if they come to you at a later time. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks. Jay, one question. So what's the recharge time on these things?
It depends on the system, and I don't have the numbers off the top of my head for the larger aircraft, but it's somewhere in like a couple of hours time, and there's a couple different ways that can be handled. So to mitigate load on the system, on the power grid, and that would be, an aircraft goes to a destination and comes back, and the battery is swapped, and then so there's a continual use of the power grid that's low, instead of all aircraft come back and then all at one time they're all plugged in and are using the power grid. But yes, I know it's a couple of hours, but I'm not exactly sure for this, like the differences between the small and the large.
All right, thank you, Che.
Hey, Jake, one quick question. What is the
Yes.
House bill or Senate bill reference that you had up there?
It was Senate Bill 96.
And where is that in the process right now?
I have not read through it. I just found out about it 2 days ago, so I haven't read through all of it. But I can get an update out in the follow-up for this, if that would be helpful. And I am having a meeting tomorrow with UDOT Aeronautics to just go over and discuss it as well. So I'll have some more information then.
Yeah, I can look that up, but anything with more information about that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, would gladly put that together after my discussion tomorrow, and then that way I'll have probably a little bit more detail and a little bit easier to digest than some Senate bills can be. So hopefully that's a help.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
All right, this next item on the agenda, discussion. What do elected officials want to hear or know about planning? Was there somebody going to lead this, or is it just me leading it?
Possibly you, possibly Ted might have
Okay.
spurred this.
So Barton, this came up in brainstorming, and at this point, I don't even remember whose idea it was, but it was kind of like if we put our heads together a little bit, and noodle on if we could wave a magic wand and impart a little bit of additional, let's say it's understanding about how communities work, how the planning process works, whatever it might be, into the minds of the leaders that we work with, what would it be? And then possibly we could share that or even act on it to work together to figure out, okay, so how would we actually address some of those gaps. So the idea here is, a little bit of just of a conversation, and we'll see where it goes. But I think that's the idea. This was not my idea, although I like it. And
Okay.
so, but it kind of found its way onto the agenda for the tax. And I thought it was a good way for us to just have like a little bit of a conversation of, what are you seeing? What do you feel like would be really just a wonderful thing to, if you could again wave the magic wand and impart some knowledge, what would it be? And we can just see what happens after that.
And I'll just jump in from my perspective. As a planner, you usually work with your planning commission, and they deal with nothing but planning. And so you have a chance to train them, you have a chance to talk to them. They know what a conditional use permit is, or zone changes, or a variance, or what you can and can't do in land, basically. And then you take, a proposal maybe for something, a zone change, or maybe an issue. You take those to elected officials, and elected officials deal with everything. They're doing budgets and fire and police and parks, and land use is just one out of 10 things, 20 things that they need to be experts on. And so I know it's a lot more challenging for me to present to, a city council about a land use item than it is the planning commissions. So I know we have several elected officials on. Would you share with us what you want to know about planning, or when your planners talk to you, what are they telling you, or what do you wish they were telling you, or what kind of information do you think they should be giving you?
Well, Mayor Fippen added that the elected officials should have the same training as planners, so. You just need a bunch of planners to run for elected official then, right?
Yeah,
Are we
Yeah.
talking?
I guess that's what kind of my comment in a sense is, you know, I know enough about planning because I was on the planning commission before I was on city council, before I became mayor. So it's like, I think it's almost a requirement to know what the hell's going on in the city. You know, you can't just start at the top.
Are we talking local elected officials? Are we talking state legislators, so on?
They probably should too.
Because the thing that strikes me when you first raised the question, this is Paul from Brigham City. I would start with the very basic, what's the constitutional basis for planning? Because time and again, we hear from various quarters that we're all socialists or communists and taking away property rights. And so I think there needs to be some grounding and understanding of what's the constitutional basis for this, and from that constitutional basis, how does it flow down to the local level?
Yeah, I'd like to echo what Paul said about that. You know, I wrote in the chat that, you know, I think it would be helpful to dispel some planning myths that maybe scare people. Understanding the constitutional foundation of planning, with that, as well as, you know, some other things that they hear of. You know, I think elected officials hear a lot from their constituents about things that, you know, they're afraid we're going to do certain things, or that planning, we're all just going to force people into apartments and all of those things. I think it would be really good to be able to talk about the fundamentals of planning, but then also those things that, you know, scare people the most that aren't really that true, you know, or it's a partial truth that they're getting hung up on.
Yeah, raising it up to the state level, that's a whole nother ball of wax. You know, I know I see a lot of bills come through, and it's just like they really don't understand anything about how zoning works at all, you know. I know they do, like the league does, you know, days on Capitol Hill or stuff like that. You know, it'd be great to get some of that basic land use training to Salt Lake, to the Capitol.
Yeah, and the problem, like that Barton's identifying, or kind of, is that those folks then make the rules within which we operate. And if they're making those rules without a sound understanding of the constitutional basis, they're tying a lot of hands that don't need to be tied.
I don't know if what I have to say is important enough. I remember a community I worked in, and a city council member said they didn't want to be brainwashed into what planners know. I won't say the community.
Yeah.
Hey, Barton, if I could put my council hat on real quick, I think one of the things from a practical standpoint that that really helps at least our council is that you start from the basics when you do any sort of when you outline whatever we're looking at or whatever. So, you know, you start from the basics of here's what this zone means and what we can do with it, and then move into what we are talking about. So I think that it just stepping us through, because you're right, we have a lot to think about, and it's not just planning stuff. So I think I think it'd be great to have some basic training, but I think you just have to get it in a planner's head that you're going to have to remind us every time you get in front of us. It's just kind of one of those things. We forget from week to week what that zone means. And so I apologize for all council members and mayors that you have to go up in front of.
This is said from someone who's on our city council that I present to. So. Yeah, you gotta start the Vince Lombardi, you know, this is a football explanation sometimes.
one thing that could be a good idea too is maybe, you know, the state legislature, they required what, 4 hours of training for planning commission elected officials. Maybe all of our state legislative body needs the same 4 hour training annually. Because they're passing laws that affect us so much. And if they understood a little bit about our process, that could be very good.
Okay, any other comments? This was just kind of a broad topic. Those were great comments. Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to the next topic. Let's see, AASHTO Bike Guide new release and NACTO Bike Guide new release. I don't know anything about these. Somebody got the...
Yeah, Barton, I can just speak to those briefly if that's all right. And
Yes.
Some of you may be aware and some of you not aware that both those organizations, AASHTO and NACTO, have released updated bikeway selection guides and has best design practices, right, that have been coming along on AASHTO side for about a decade. It's taken a while to get their latest bike guide updated, and the NACTO one, there's going to be a lot more in-depth stuff in the AASHTO guide. But just encourage anybody that's interested or to pass those on to the engineers that you work with or any designers that you work with. Those new guides are there, and just encourage folks to check them out on their own so they at least know where that resource is for current best practices when it comes not just to design, but also planning, what facility to choose, operation and maintenance, all sorts of topics in the bike world. So thanks for giving me a minute just to highlight those and make people aware of them.
It might be worth doing another sort of a longer presentation on what those are, because I know that's always very helpful to understand.
Yeah, we could absolutely do that.
All
Put
right.
it on the agenda for next time. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, so is there any other business anybody has?
Barton, only question I'd have is, I think Layton had volunteered to do the highlight and then asked Bountiful stepped in. Does Layton want to do the next meeting in April?
Yeah, I think city manager, you still there from Layton?
I don't think that the city manager was on, but it was Mayor Petro that was on.
Okay.
Or we can follow up, Barton, or with
Yeah. Yeah, I'll follow up and I'll twist their arms. If they won't, I'll call one of you guys to twist your arms to do it. So.
Hey Barton, this is Peter at Clinton. We're certainly willing to provide an update. Maybe that third meeting of the year. What is that, September?
Okay.
We're just starting into a general plan update process. By then, we should have a pretty good handle on things and can provide a decent update, I think.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Making it too easy.
Yeah.
I'll put you down, Peter.
Yeah, Barton, I would just follow up with Weston. I think he's out of town today, but you could follow up with him at Layton City to see if they're still good to go on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll follow up with Weston. All right. So with that, so our next meeting will be April 16th. It'll be another virtual meeting. And so thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.